Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Steve Smith and Alex Fantasy Experience. Steve Smith isn't here right now, but we've got some quotes from him. Alex,
Yeah,
want to go ahead?
we're just gonna go ahead and get right into it here. So Steve Smith offers some wisdom on why the Panthers kept Greg Hardy, noted domestic abuser. Still not with the Panthers because of what he did. So this is what Steve Smith had to say about that. And remember that the Ravens released Smith because he was potentially because he was a distraction. So when asked about this, Steve Smith said, "I've always been a distraction, but I didn't hit my wife. Yeah,
Ooh.
I hit some teammates 6 or 7 years ago, but I didn't beat my wife. And I didn't get arrested for DUIs. And I didn't fall off no motorcycles. All I did was charity work in Charlotte. I made some mistakes. But building this big old crutch about it, like as if I pushed their hand, that's it." Walrus, want to know what I love about Steve Smith quotes? First of all, he has a good point in that quote.
Yeah.
I think he's in the right, first of all. But second of all, he always has some ridiculous descriptive language in the quote, like the bedpost thing that we always talk about. And then here this big old crutch. I don't know what that means in this context.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He has such evocative language.
Great goggles.
Oh my god.
Great use of goggles.
That's a great point too. That on its own was a great quote. Steve Smith,
yeah, he's evolved into one of my favorite NFL players. One, because he is extremely talented and bound for the Hall of Fame, but way more importantly, he's just awesome. And
he's awesome. He doesn't care, man. He goes out there and does his job. And I remember they did a little sideline interview with him on the way out. They were like, "Were you talking?" During the game, he was like, "Nah, I had nothing to say to them. I had nothing to say." He's a man. Oh, why is he Walrus? Explain why he's Steve Smith Sr., because that's also interesting.
So he's Steve Smith Sr. because he changed his name when he was expecting, or because he has a potential future son. The son doesn't exist yet, is the important thing. I don't even know if his wife is pregnant.
Do you think do you think Steve Smith at the point of conception said, "My son is going to be named Steve Smith"?
Him and his wife finished, and he's like, "Oh,
how many years do you think? Jr. How many years do you think Steve Smith has been naming his individual sperm Steve Smith? It's probably his whole life, right?
A bunch of little Steve Smiths swimming around.
Yeah, man. All
right. Quarterbacks.
Let's talk about football.
So this week, the two teams on bye are Miami and Oakland, the two teams that played in London last weekend. Only really relevant players there are Lamar Miller and Mike Wallace, and it's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I guess maybe Jacoby Jones. No, not Jacoby Jones. Who's James Jones, but
yeah,
not really.
Nonetheless, it's probably not going to be a hugely influential bye week for most people. So without further ado, let's get on with our rankings. As always, our rankings are in the video description if you don't want to sit through this video. But I think that's why most of you are here. One, because the rankings are your lifeblood and the pure reason for your success in fantasy, but two, our banter is why you wake up in the morning, or at least that's
not only your success in fantasy, but maybe it justifies your existence in some way, Walrus.
Hey, you got that internship the other weekend, probably because of our show.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so let's start with our number one guy this week, Peyton Manning, back after a bye, taking on a tough Arizona defense, but we're not too worried. Number two, Phillip Rivers, taking on a not tough, or at least not in the past, a not tough Jets defense. We want to talk a little bit about Phillip Rivers, Walrus. We got him up pretty high this week, ahead of notables like Drew Brees, maybe ahead of Matt Ryan. Why do we like him so much?
Well, Phillip Rivers has had one hell of a season so far. He's essentially been a lock to be 20 points in fantasy, and against great defenses, far better ones than the abysmal Jets. He put up numbers against the Cardinals and the Seahawks, and the Jets are on the other end of that scale, where they have guys starting at corner who probably shouldn't be on NFL teams. So Yes, Phillip Rivers should have a fun day, although the Jets' pass rush has been effective, although
It's true.
I don't think that's going to be quite enough of an issue to knock Rivers off course. Expect a huge day from Phil.
Yeah, I agree. And, Keenan Allen got back on track last week, like we told you he would. And the things will only get better for Rivers the more he uses Keenan Allen. He's just great.
Yeah, sounds good. So number 3, we got Drew Brees. He's been struggling recently, but hopefully Tampa Bay can turn that around. 4, Matt Ryan playing against Buffalo. And 5, Russell Wilson at Washington. And 6, a guy who we were having a bit of a discussion about earlier, and I think we're going to get right back into that right now, Matt Ryan at the Giants. So I think Matt Ryan is an elite quarterback option going forward, but especially against this Giants defense, who, while they have looked good the past 2 weeks, they looked good against the likes of Kirk Cousins and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Whereas before, they struggled against the Cardinals. And was that Carson Palmer or Drew Stanton at the time?
It was Palmer.
So they got beaten by Palmer, and they got destroyed by Matthew Stafford. And I'm not convinced that Matt Ryan is any less talented than Stafford.
Oh, I think Matt Ryan's better than Stafford. Walrus, I've been thinking about this since we had a little bit of a debate. I think you're right. I think Matt Ryan is a safe play here. I do like the Giants defense, but I guess maybe what I'm getting at is that I think Ryan is probably good enough to not be affected by this sort of matchup. The Giants are a good pass defense. And, even if you looked at the Giants last year, they had one of the better DVOAs against the pass. But the thing is, they put up a lot of their really good numbers against very subpar quarterbacks. They took on the Packers when the Packers were starting their backup. They beat up a bunch of just crappy quarterbacks last year. And if you look at the way their defense has been playing, they've kind of done the same thing this year. So
Kirk Cousins might not be crappy because he's got great weapons, but at the same time, he's not elite, and he's certainly well below Matt Ryan and that Atlanta passing offense.
Right. Same thing with same thing with some of the other matchups earlier this year. Like, I don't love Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the Giants made him look really bad. So I don't know. I think the Giants have a good pass defense. But I guess what I was arguing earlier is they would have a good enough pass defense to make Matt Ryan significantly worse.
So you look at Matt Ryan's numbers, and it's interesting.
That argument. Oh. Yeah, go for it.
So in his 4 games, he's had 3 games where he's had 3 touchdowns, which was against New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. In the Minnesota game, he also threw 2 picks, but otherwise he has been solid in all 3 of those.
Been good.
His only bad game was against Cincinnati, which is understandable because most quarterbacks have been pretty awful against them. So
yeah, they've been great this year.
Matt Ryan has beaten up a lot of bad defenses, and he got destroyed by a really good one. He hasn't played a defense in the general vicinity of the Giants. That said, from past experiences when he's had a healthy Julio, he's been very successful against teams of this caliber. So I think start Matt Ryan with confidence.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. But I do think this is a very interesting matchup that will probably tell us more about both parties. I think we'll learn how good the Giants defense is, and we'll learn about Matt Ryan, because like you said, I don't really think you can take too much away from him not playing well against Cincinnati just because they've been so good this year.
Exactly. Moving on, we've got Big Ben at Jacksonville, number 7. Number 8, we've got Nick Foles playing against St. Louis. Number 9, Cam Newton against Chicago. And number 10, same matchup, oddly enough, Eli Manning.
Y'all get out of the way. Eli Manning's coming to town.
Eli is in our top 10 for the first time in like 2 years. This is worrisome. Please explain this madness.
No, I'm not going to. I'm going to take a victory lap. Wallace, here's the thing. The Falcons have not been horrible against the pass. They're kind of right about middle of the road, so they're pretty much a neutral matchup. But Eli Manning has been awesome. He was great against Houston, 234, 2 touchdowns, 17 fantasy points, and he was absolutely destructive against Washington. 300 yards, 4 TDs, 32 fantasy points. He also snuck in a rushing touchdown there as well, I think. So here's the thing. I think Eli Manning played great week 2 against Arizona as well. The results weren't there. There were a lot of dropped passes. He's looked very good this year, and he's looked better lately. It looks like he's finally starting to get comfortable in that West Coast passing offense the Giants instituted this offseason. I like him a lot, and Atlanta has no pass rush. Their pass defense, but their pass rush is, they definitely are the worst in the NFL this year. They might be the worst in the NFL in multiple years. I think Eli's going to have a lot of time to throw, which is generally a problem for him with how bad the Giants' offensive line has been. And I see this game being a shootout, and I think the Giants could win it, and I think Eli's going to have a great game. And Walrus, you agree with me? I mean, you agree with him being in the top 10, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the matchup is certainly not a minus. You expect him, again, to have a lot of time to throw. It's not really too much to say. You've watched Eli more this season than I have.
And it's been amazing. It's changed my life. I've lost weight. I've grown taller. Everything.
Yeah, I think the caliber of play of Victor Cruz and the surrounding receivers has had a lot to do with Eli bouncing back. Victor Cruz looked god-awful in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he played really badly, dropped a lot of passes.
So I think Eli's success hasn't had as much to do with his own performance across the 4 weeks, but more so that of his receivers. And as long as Cruz and your boss, Mr. Donnell, continue to play at a high level, Eli's great. Yeah, Eli's going to do well. But if Cruz regresses back to where he was those first couple of weeks where he had a case of the drops and he was struggling to get open, then I don't think Eli is going to have a great day, no matter how much time he has.
And just as another note, Odell Beckham Jr., the Giants' first-round pick this year, is questionable for this week, but this has been the first week where it has seemed like he might play.
Sounds good. All right, and the only other quarterbacks we have on our list, number 11, Colin Kaepernick, 12, Jay Cutler, 13, Romo, 14, Flacco, 15, Dalton, 16, Mike Glennon, 17, we got Tom Brady, 18, Alex Smith, 19, Blake Bortles, and 20, Austin Davis. You can find their matchups in the video description, and if you have any questions on any of those rankings, feel free to let us know. And moving on, got running backs.
Let's do it.
So DeMarco Murray's been really good this year. We got him at number 1. He's playing against Houston.
Man. And
they've been running more than they have before with Murray. Really, have they ever run this much with him?
Sorry, Walrus cut out a little bit. What was that?
Have the Cowboys ever run this much in the DeMarco Murray era?
The thing we thought was crazy, and we really liked a lot of the Cowboys going into the year. We thought Romo was a good late-round quarterback pick for some people. Is we had good feelings about their offensive line. We thought that would look good, but we largely thought that they were going to be good on offense, but mostly because of the passing game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's been the running game. I mean, been absolutely fantastic running the ball so far. And, Houston recently was torn apart by Rashad Jennings. DeMarco Murray is a much run back than Rashad Jennings.
Yo, you're cutting out.
Oh, no. All right, sorry about that.
Continue.
He's got can you hear me?
Yeah.
He's got a much better offensive line than Rashad Jennings does. DeMarco, I mean, I don't think that any running back is valuable enough to be the MVP of the NFL, but he's the closest.
Yeah. He's the reason the Cowboys have a winning record right now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been great.
Absolutely. Moving on, we got number 2, Marshawn Lynch playing at Washington. Number 3, Le'Veon Bell at Jacksonville. Number 4, Jamaal Charles. He's playing at San Francisco. Number 5, Giovani Bernard at New England. Number 6, Matt Forte at Carolina. 7, king of NFL running backs, Rashad Jennings. He's playing Atlanta. Number 8.
He's the king.
Number 8, we got Zac Stacy at Philly.
Yeah.
What do we think about Zac Stacy?
Well, so there was a kind of an interesting sort of thing has happened with Zac Stacy, because if you remember week 1, people were very concerned. Stacy did not have a good week, and Benny Cunningham got significant carries in the offense. That has not been true since then. Zac Stacy is the guy in the Rams offense. Not that necessarily is that good of a thing, because the Rams offense has been really pretty brutal this year. But we like Zac Stacy because he's been a consistently good running back, and he's also, he gets the touches, right?
Yeah.
In his last 2 games, he's had 11 points, and I don't think you'd be looking at Zac Stacy to be a number 1 running back for you. He'd be like your number 2, and that's a good spot. I think he's very consistent.
Him in the 2nd round, so there's a pretty good chance he's your number 2 back anyway, assuming you didn't draft Adrian Peterson or LeSean McCoy. But yeah, he's definitely turned things around this year. The whole fear of Benny Cunningham stealing the workload from him and Zac Stacy regressing to being the number 2 back, that's kind of been quelched so far. He's definitely hasn't gotten the touchdown count yet. Only 1 touchdown on the year, which is a little disappointing, but you gotta figure that they will be able to get into the red zone against this Eagles defense. So we like Zac Stacy. I'd say that.
He's played well. I think he's got a particularly high floor. I don't think he's a huge high ceiling option, but I don't really see you getting much less than 7 or 8 fantasy points from him each week, which, you could do a lot worse than that, especially considering how shaky running back has been this year.
Absolutely. He's only got 6 receptions on the year, but again, keep in mind Zac Stacy's played in 3, not 4 games.
Right, that's a good point. And 6 catches for 62 yards, isn't bad. If he's giving you a little more than 10 per pop, you'll live with that.
Yeah, he's averaging 2 receptions for, 20 yards a game? That's in addition to the fact that he's getting you 60 yards rushing and maybe a touchdown. I don't know. I think that he's going to have a big game, possibly as big as the year, but you also would have thought that would have been the case against either Dallas or Tampa, where he was fine, but not elite.
Eagles are top 10 points allowed to running backs, so it is a good matchup. But we'll see. You have to figure though, the Rams might get behind in this game. It's a little touch and go with how the game might go.
I think they're going to stick to the run all the way through the 3rd quarter because it's not like they'll be able to play like a shootout type game. They want to hold on to the ball.
You don't think so? You don't think they'll be able to win a shootout against the Eagles?
Well, we'll talk about Brian Quick later, but
yes, we will. We absolutely will.
Hey.
But no, you are right about that. If they do kind of what San Diego did last year and just try to hold on to the ball as long as they can against a good offense, I think you're right about that. That would be a good strategy for them. But who knows with them in strategy? It's not like they figured out how to use Tavon Austin yet. So
this probably won't. Probably will not.
All right,
they might
number
even
9.
trade Tavon for Mark Sanchez.
Andre Ellington?
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Remember when they were going to trade for Mark Sanchez? That was,
it
let's
was
move
a bad
on.
Idea. Yeah,
let's move on. But that would have meant you would have had to root for Mark Sanchez on 2 different teams. That's horrible.
No one wants to do that. Anyway, number 9, we have Andre Ellington at Denver, 10, Arian Foster at Dallas, 11, Frank Gore, 12, Reggie Bush, 13, Ahmad Bradshaw, 14, all the way down here we got LeSean McCoy, and
Oof.
Yeah, he's looked really bad. That's all there is to it. But if you have him, you're probably starting him as your flex this week. And if he has another bad week, we might consider keeping him on our bench going forward. But I think this is the last time, considering the matchup, that you have to trust him.
That offensive line is a disaster.
Almost as bad as the Patriots.
Oh, man. What? NFL's weird. All right, and then we have at number 15, we have a guy we're going to talk about a little bit. We've got Ben Tate here, who is probable this week at Tennessee. Why do we like Ben Tate?
Well, he's going to start if he plays, and we know he's a talented back. The knock on Ben Tate has always been his proneness to injury. So the fact that we know he's healthy and he's going to get the workload is promising. Expect a game from him, maybe 12 to 20 carries, I think is the range we'd expect. And the risk with Ben Tate going forward is that Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell haven't looked all that bad in his absence, and I think a team like Cleveland is prone to run with the hot hand, so if one of those guys gets off for a few big runs and they're just looking like the better running back in this game, Tate's carries could suffer. Now, you have a quote.
Yeah, I was looking at this because what happened in my league is I've had Terrence West on my bench all year. And I did end up using him 1 week, but someone in my league dropped Ben Tate. So I figured, I'm going to pick up Ben Tate because Ben Tate is the guy that Terrence West backs up. It kind of makes sense. So interestingly, I was reading a little bit about Ben Tate, and there was Mike Pettin, the Browns coach, gave a quote. He said that because we had two rookies playing, he's talking about Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell, because we had two rookies playing, we limited ourselves a little bit in some of the things we could do schematically, said Pettin. We didn't want to throw the whole playbook at those guys. We felt that restricted some of the things we could do. I think you can open the playbook a little bit more with Ben in there. So this isn't to say that you should absolutely start Ben Tate. You should obviously check his injury status, but I do like Ben Tate a lot.
If Ben Tate is not playing on Sunday, we recommend not starting him.
But the thing is, some people have been talking about a timeshare when Ben Tate gets back, and while I think that Isaiah Crowell, especially, who's played very well in Tate's absence, will get some carries, I think that you need to pay attention that Cleveland wants Tate out there. And, Tate didn't play a ton so far this year because of his injury, but he played really well the carries he did have. And he's a guy you want to make sure is owned in your league, and he might be worth starting this week. Tennessee's not a great run defense. They haven't been so far this year. They're allowing the 8th most points to running backs. And I like Ben Tate. I think he's worthy of a flex spot.
Let's go Ben Tate.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that offense shakes out.
All right, and rounding out
a couple guys who are pretty good.
Absolutely. Rounding out our top 20, we've got Chris Ivory playing against San Diego. 17 is Montee Ball against Arizona. 18, Alfred Morris against Seattle. 19, Doug Martin at New Orleans. And 20, Fred Jackson at Detroit. Now, what do we think about Fred Jackson?
Well, the thing with Detroit is that they have had a really, really good run defense so far this year.
Very good.
So that is why we don't have C.J. Spiller on this list. We have Fred Jackson, largely because Fred Jackson has been a huge threat in the receiving department so far this year.
Number one receiver on that team, right?
Yeah, you're right. He has the most catches so far. So he hasn't been doing a ton on the ground. He's gotten anywhere from 6 to 12 carries on a weekly basis, and he hasn't been great, but he's been okay. But the thing is, he has 24 targets in the receiving game and 19 receptions. So I guess that kind of gets at why we consistently like Fred Jackson a little more than C.J. Spiller. His value, I think, is a little more stable week to week just because he sees the ball in a number of different ways. He's going to get a lot of involvement. He gets about 12 touches a week, and you can kind of bank on that. And he's done pretty well with them so far.
Mm-hmm. Especially against a team like Detroit, where they could go out to an early lead, just airing the ball out. It's nice to know that your running back, who you're starting as maybe your RB2 or your flex, is still going to be active in the offense, even though they're playing catch-up. And with some running backs, that's not the case. So we definitely like Fred Jackson this week. And yes, if you have C.J. Spiller, he is definitely at least a consideration for a flex, although we like him the less of the two.
Yeah, the thing with C.J. Spiller is that there are very few games where he comes out, because he's the starter, he comes out really hot and dominates, and Fred Jackson never sees the field. Which I think is just proof that C.J. Spiller is not as good as the Bills think he is. But whatever. They did make the quarterback change this week, so maybe things will be a little bit different, but we'll have to see. No more E.J. Manuel, because the Bills decided he was too good. It was unfair.
Pretty much. That's it we have for running back.
I apologize for the backup noise. Did you hear the background noise, Walrus?
Loosely. Did you see the thing I sent you? It was a picture of Zac Stacy trying to catch a football.
Was that? I couldn't even tell who that was because his face was in such intense concentration trying to catch the football.
I know. It's an awesome picture. Anyway,
that'll be the photo we run with Zac Stacy this week.
Oh, without a doubt.
He looks like he's going to take a bite out of that ball.
Now that, on the other hand, we did hear. Oh, sounds like you're out
there. These guys are, I'm telling you, they do it every week. These guys love the weekend, Walrus. They just love it.
Woo! Friday.
All right.
Beer.
Want to know someone else who loves the weekend?
Antonio Brown is
our number one receiver, Antonio Brown, gets pretty happy whenever he has to play football.
Wait, someone
He's
better
been
than Calvin Johnson?
Well, all right. Well, do we know if he's better than Calvin Johnson?
No, we don't. But
I think he might be a better fantasy option than Calvin Johnson. And I think we can kind of say that with some confidence. Antonio Brown's worst week this year was 10 fantasy points, which is kind of ridiculous. In his last 2, he's been over 20. He's getting a ton of targets in that Pittsburgh offense. We like Ben Roethlisberger this year against an awful Jaguars pass defense. And I think I think things are looking pretty good. All right, this is incredible. Should I tell them to be quiet while we're speaking?
I'm having a great time over here. You tell me.
I'm trying to talk about Antonio Brown, maintain my focus. No, they usually kind of like this runs out in about 5 minutes.
Okay, Antonio Brown's got 5 touchdowns on the year. Dear God,
he's crazy. I'm telling you, he's on
pace.
He has 39 targets through 4 games. It's crazy.
Dude, he's
like you can't get a better fantasy player than him. You just can't. He's a deep threat who catches 7 balls every week.
He's on pace for an 1,800-yard season. That's all I really have to say.
And the crazy thing about last week is that they ran a flea flicker, and Ben Roethlisberger threw him a perfect pass that would have been a touchdown that he dropped, and then a few plays later, he had a deep that just was out of his reach. He could have had 2 more touchdowns last week and probably about 70 more yards. All right.
Oh.
Morris, should I be the angry older college student and be like, listen, guys, you got to quiet down?
Are you older?
Yeah, these kids are freshmen. They're insane.
You're an RA?
No, I'm not an RA.
Why are you living with freshmen?
Oh, the school I go to, we mix up the dorms.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
No, it's not a terrible idea. We're supposed to teach them the way to behave.
Yeah.
Clearly, I've been doing a poor job. Of course, I need to tell you about what I do with these kids. So there are 3 kids living in the room next door, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know their names. I just know the 3 names. So they're like Michael, Anthony, and like Tom or something. And so for the first few weeks of school, I just called them those 3 names interchangeably. So whenever I'd see them, I'd just call them whatever name out of those 3 I thought of. And then one day I forgot one of those names, so I just called one of them another random name. So now I basically, whenever I see those 3 kids, I just call them whatever name I think of first. Just totally make up their names. They're super.
Ladarius.
Yeah, they have no idea. Like, they don't know what to say. They don't know if I'm like joking with them or if I'm insane. Like, it's been fun.
It sounds like a great old time.
Yeah, these kids have so much fun. They love college.
It's good to know they enjoy school while they can.
They love college. Anyway, Antonio Brown loves football. These kids live next door to me. They love college. Number 2, Calvin Johnson against Buffalo. Number 3, Dez Bryant at Houston, playing Houston. Julio Jones at the Giants. A.J. Green. Demaryius Thomas, number 6. Jeremy Maclin, number 7. Keenan Allen against that terrible Jets pass defense, number 8. Brandon Marshall, number 9. Alshon Jeffrey, number 10. Percy Harvin, number 11. Victor Cruz, number 12. And Emmanuel Sanders, number 13. A legitimate fantasy option as the number 2 in that Denver offense.
He's been a legitimate fantasy option since week 1 at this point. We were a little skeptical going in, but now it's pretty clear that he's a wide receiver too. And he, as we've said together, he has filled in quite nicely as the Eric Decker of that offense.
Yeah, he actually surprisingly has not caught any touchdowns this year.
But he has been putting up receptions and yardage in all of his games, and I think the touchdowns will follow. It's more so that he has quite the red zone presence of Julius or Demaryius.
Right. The two conflicting opinions about someone like this is that, oh, well, he hasn't had any touchdowns yet, and he's put up a lot of points. That must mean he's going to score more points once he starts getting touchdowns. Or, like, the other way of looking at it is, well, like, he's been very heavily dependent on catching a lot of balls. Like, there might be a week where he doesn't catch a lot of balls, and since he's not a red zone threat, he's a little bit dangerous, and his numbers might be unnaturally inflated.
I have a response to that.
Yeah, what do you think?
if your fear about a guy is that he's too reliant on catching a lot of passes and getting a lot of yards, you don't understand fantasy football. Because someone who, like, that's a good thing if they get most of their points through that.
Generally, you're right. And I mean,
if they're able to consistently do it, obviously someone who scores a lot of touchdowns has a huge bonus, but this is a guy in an elite offense that's able to move the ball frequently. And the fact of the matter is, yes, once they're inside the 20, he's not the guy Peyton's looking for. But if they're at the 40 and he's able to break one tackle, it's totally reasonable that he'll get a touchdown. So I think it's more so a matter of coincidence as opposed to skill level. So the fact that he's going to get you like 7 catches for 80 yards week in, week out, that's great. The upside of possibly having a touchdown is even better. So, like, I think the whole argument against Sanders is a little flawed.
Yeah. And here's the thing, too. I mean, he's not doing like the Allen Hurns 3 catches for 100 yards. Like every week, 6 receptions, 8 receptions, 11 receptions against Seattle, and Wes Welker was back that week. So, I mean, you start Emmanuel Sanders with confidence. One of my good friends in a league just traded for him. I think he's a great candidate to buy on, even against an Arizona defense that's tough. I think the Arizona defense will probably do more to Demaryius's value than it will do to Emmanuel's. Kind of as we saw last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago in Seattle.
As well as when they played against Keenan Allen. They were able to limit him pretty well, but the other San Diego receivers stepped up. Could see the same thing here against Denver.
Don't disagree.
All right, moving on. Number 14, Kelvin Benjamin is playing Chicago. Steve Smith Sr., co-owner of the fantasy show, he's at Indy. 16, Reggie Wayne. Got Baltimore. 17, Vincent Jackson at New Orleans. And 18, we got Nuck. You want to explain who Nuck is?
Should we just talk entirely about Nuck without ever telling them who Nuck is?
If you guys want to look at the rankings, you can. We're just going to refer to Nuck. He is a Houston receiver. He's playing against Dallas. Nuck
has had a great year this year, and so good of a year that Walrus and I we were gonna put him on our rankings, and then we got into a little argument over where he should be, and then we looked at his numbers. He's having a really, really good year. He's actually currently the number 9th ranked receiver. He's putting up about 11 points a week, and he's been really, really good. 3 touchdowns on 25 targets through 4 weeks, which, maybe you'd like to see a little bit more, but he has emerged past Andre Johnson as the number 1 receiver in that Houston offense.
So I do agree that he is ahead of Andre Johnson. Nuck is, of course.
No, he being Nuck, of course.
That's his actual nickname, according to Wikipedia. So
yeah, we just Googled his name. Nuck came up. We were blown away here.
Now, I will say that you say he's the number 9 fantasy receiver. Is that total points or points per week?
It's I believe it's total points. Which
because that
Walrus, you make a good point. Walrus,
so
you make a good point.
He's probably a bit lower. Don't take that number too seriously, because again, Denver and Seattle and Cincinnati were all high.
You're right. A number of very good teams.
So, but nonetheless, he does look like the better of the 2 receivers. I, being an Andre Johnson owner, am considering benching him this week in favor of. Actually, oddly enough, Emmanuel Sanders. I don't even think it's a close call.
You gotta do it.
But on the other hand, Nuck has been great. You've already kind of overlaid his stats, but it's definitely looking strong. And Dallas should be a good matchup. Could be a shootout. Yeah. I hate to say shootout with Houston because they don't really do that, but they could be playing catch up.
Dallas might score a lot of points. Nuck, he could have had better numbers. I remember against the Giants, there was a kind of a nonsense penalty called, and Nuck made it one of the best catches I've ever seen. Seriously, it was like this incredible one-handed catch with a guy draped all over him. Go look that up for Nuck's catch that was called back against the Giants. Could have had an even bigger game than he did, and even then he had 116 receiving yards against the Giants. He's great. He's really, really good.
Good at football.
Not a whole lot else to say. And his nickname is Nuck.
Again, if you want to know who we're actually referring to, you can look it up. Although there's only 2 relevant Houston receivers, and we told you it wasn't Andre Johnson. So hopefully, if you follow football,
can you name another receiver on the Texans? I don't know if I can. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to look Texans receivers up. Keep talking.
Was Jacoby Jones on that team at one point?
Can you name... He was on that team at one point. I seriously have never heard of any of their other receivers.
Yep. Which is why he's done so well this season, because no one else knows how to catch a football.
Apparently have a guy named DeMarco Johnson.
Ooh, we should put him on our list. Sounds good.
Yeah, he actually has a touchdown this year, so go figure.
Oh, is that more touchdowns than Andre Johnson?
Yeah, it's actually true. DeMarco Johnson only has... Never mind. Andre Johnson
more touchdowns than LeSean McCoy.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that? Through 4 weeks.
DeMarco Johnson used to be on... Crazy enough, he actually used to be on the Eagles, DeMarco Johnson. Good work, Walrus.
Yeah,
we're out of control this
kind of.
We're doing such a good job.
So, number 19, another good receiver, Brandon Cooks. We probably want to start him.
Love him.
Number 20, we got Michael Floyd at Denver. 21, Roddy White TV at the Giants. 22, Michael Crabtree playing against KC. 23, Andre Johnson at New Orleans. 24, Sammy Watkins at Detroit. 25, Golden Tate playing against Buffalo. 26, Pierre Garçon taking on Seattle. 27, Julian Edelman against that brutal Cincinnati defense. 28, Eric Decker at San Diego. And 29. So I didn't want him on this list. I've seen him play before. I don't think he's like all that good, but it kind of makes sense that he has emerged recently. Brian Quick is at Philadelphia. He's a Rams receiver, for those of you who aren't familiar with him. He's out of
for those of you who don't know that Rams start receivers.
Yes, they don't just play Zac Stacy and 10 linemen. Although
that would
they
be
should.
Pretty awesome. They should. They definitely should. They shouldn't even start a quarterback. Yeah, just Zac Stacy and linemen.
Zac Stacy running the Wildcat. I want to see that. Can you imagine that?
Oh my goodness! So much concentration, and we know what Zac Stacy looks like when he concentrates. It's pretty amazing. All right, no, Walrus. Listen, I like Brandon Cooks. We like Brandon Cooks. We also like Brian Quick. The thing with Brian Quick, Walrus, is 3 games so far for the Rams, 22 targets. Can you argue with 22 targets?
You really can't. So here's the thing with Brian Quick, because this is his 3rd NFL season, and in his rookie season, he was expected to be essentially the number 2 receiver on that team besides Danny Amendola. Now, we know how that worked because he was on the bench for most of that year. He was pretty garbage. The thing is, Brian Quick is more of a vertical receiver in the routes he runs, and Sam Bradford doesn't like to throw passes more than 2 yards. So it makes sense that Brian Quick has struggled with Sam Bradford at the helm. But with Austin Davis at quarterback, a guy who is more prone to air it out, that is more tailored to Brian Quick's skill set. So again, I, on the one hand, want to say he has had 3 good NFL games in going on 3 years. On the other hand, it kind of makes sense why they're all showing up now. So
you make some good points. I like him. I think he's good. We do have to remember that he was one of the most highly thought of wide receivers in his 2012 draft class. Hasn't panned out. Sometimes maybe it takes guys a little bit longer, but as long as Austin Davis is starting, I think Brian Quick is worthy of a flex spot at the very least, especially against Philadelphia, who has a bad defense. I mean, they made Kirk Cousins look awesome.
Captain Kirk.
Good work.
Number 30.
Captain Kirk.
Number 30, rounding out our receivers, got Malcolm Floyd against that abysmal Jets secondary. Should be a good game for him. Moving on, tight ends. Number 1, I hear he is good at football. Jimmy Graham, he's a guy you want to start.
Who are you listening to? Who told you Jimmy Graham was good at football? Find that person and tell him he's wrong.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll tell my boy, Travis Kelce. Number 2, Julius Thomas playing against Arizona. Number 3, Black Unicorn Martellus Bennett at Carolina. Number 4, Gronk playing against Cincinnati. And number 5, he's back.
Larry Donnell.
The ball. Walrus,
we have him here more. We've talked about my boss. We all know how that goes. We have Larry Donnell here more to tell an amusing Larry Donnell anecdote. I'm getting so Lars, you want to spell out the story for our viewers?
So Larry Donnell, much like me and you, plays fantasy football on a weekly basis.
Larry Donnell, unlike me and you, also plays in the NFL.
Larry Donnell, as a result, owns himself on his own fantasy team, which is a situation that I've always pondered. If I were in the NFL, would I play myself, or would that make losing even worse? Because, like, if I have that game, like, then it hurts me and my fantasy team. Larry Donnell...
luckily, Walrus, it doesn't seem like you'll ever have that problem.
No, I am short and white. It's highly problematic in the NFL.
You do have good hands.
I'm not Drew Brees.
No, you're not. You are not Drew Brees.
He's short and white. He gets it done, but nonetheless,
I have played football with you before. You are not Drew Brees.
No, Larry Donnell, even though he owns himself, decided, you know what? Vernon Davis is a better tight end than me. I'm going to start him. Larry Donnell then went on to have 3 touchdowns and a career game, and Vernon Davis, did he even play?
I don't
even
think
know
he played.
Vernon played. Yeah, so Larry Donnell cost himself his own fantasy matchup because he didn't start himself. And he said, you know what? Next week, I'm going to start me.
And he also said, would have won if I played me, Donnell told the Record after practice on Wednesday. During the game, I'm like, really? That's the honest truth. I love my boss.
He wasn't
my boss he's always saying goofy stuff like that.
We love Larry Donnell here. Great guy. Great friend of the show.
He's great. Oh, come on. Give it up. He feeds my kids.
Number 6, Greg Olsen, playing against his former team in Chicago. Number 7, although Greg Olsen will not be as fired up as Steve Smith, because no one will be as fired up as Steve Smith playing against a former team. That's
a good point. Although Greg Olsen might be a little fired up. However, whatever fired up constitutes for Greg Olsen. Maybe he'll listen to I wonder what kind of music Greg Olsen's listening. See if that's on the internet. Well, let's keep talking.
Folk music. Religious R&B.
Folk music?
Or Christian R&B. Or that's Russell Wilson. My bad.
He listens to, we've talked about Russell Wilson's taste in music.
It's extraordinary.
Continue. I'm going to see if Greg Olsen, there's anything I can find out about Greg Olsen.
Well, Bill Belichick is a big Bruce Springsteen fan. Another fun fact.
What was that?
Bill Belichick is a Bruce Springsteen fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you see the Belichick press conference where he... Go ahead. Where he basically kept saying, we're looking to Cincinnati next week?
Yeah.
They kept asking him what his team was doing wrong. He's like, we're just looking to Cincinnati next week.
Mm-hmm. No, he's distraught, but this is like one of the worst teams he's had. It should be interesting to see
what crazy, but actually, I thought they were going to be pretty good this year.
I picked them to be the number 2 team in the AFC.
Yeah, that wasn't. I thought this was going to be the best defense they've had in a long time, and they did have a very good defense until last week when Kansas City, of all teams, really tore them apart.
Well, Jamaal Charles woke up, and he sometimes just does that to people, so it's
fair.
Number 7, Delaney Walker playing against Cleveland. Number 8, Zach Ertz against St. Louis. 9, Antonio Gates against the Jets. 10, Heath Miller at Jacksonville. 11, Vernon Davis against the Chiefs. 12, Jason Witten against Houston. We have to talk about... so Jason Witten's been bad.
We have to. Yeah, he's been bad.
Yeah, do we have to say anything more than that?
I prorated his numbers would be 60 catches for 624 yards.
Wow. That's bad.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know what to say.
That's worse than what I assume would be the case for Dwayne Allen probably Dwayne Allen.
I can check. Dwayne Allen, the thing is, his numbers aren't going to be great. He's just going to do like 2 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown every week.
But that's still better than
Dwayne Allen has. Absolutely. He has 3 touchdowns this week. This week. He has 3 touchdowns this year. So.
But he's getting 3 touchdowns this week. He's going to pull Larry Donnell.
All of my shot. He's the 11th ranked tight end. Not bad. Although, of course, bye weeks, but still.
Absolutely. 14, Owen Daniels. 15, Travis Kelce. 16, Jordan Cameron. 17, Jared Cook. 18, Jordan Reed. 19, Eric Ebron. And number 20, but number one in our hearts. We got Larry Donnell for the second time.
Yeah. Now, back up in this. Back up in this.
Just in case the first Larry Donnell mention goes through you, we're going to get you again and make sure you start him if you have him.
You know that part in We Major where Kanye goes, "Can I talk my shit again?"
Yep.
That's basically what Larry Donnell is doing right now.
Word.
Walrus, you know that where in Never Let Me Down on the first Kanye album where Kanye goes, "Oh, we ain't finished." Larry Donnell doing that right now.
Yo, listen to that new Gambino mixtape and tell me how bad it is.
I haven't listened yet. You hate it.
So I like the website that goes along with it that you scroll through.
Wait, there's a website that goes along?
Yeah, go to his Facebook page and click that and just scroll through it. It's pretty nice, and I think that's better. Like, that almost hyped up the mixtape too much, because then I listen to it, and I'm like, wow, this is really... And it's also partially because Royalty was one of the best mixtapes I've heard in a while. And, like, this is far worse than Royalty.
The thing is... Alright, so the thing is, like... What's he doing with all these multimedia or like multi-platform albums? You know, like how his last album he came with a screenplay. This one comes with a website. Like maybe we just get